Hello, welcome. Welcome back. I'm Valgan. I do udon tutorial videos and live streams for creating content for VR chat, udon related things. I work standalone Unity dev primarily, so these days I'm largely off developing actual things for like actual Unity projects, so not primarily udon things, but we have been working on a lot of things throughout these streams, and one of them in the past was World UI. World UI is a very how do I put this? It's a complete package for creating your own controls for your VR chat world. So you have a panel that sits on the wall, you have all your settings on it, and that does all the stuff. But of course, there's been a few features that it's kind of desperately needed. So one of those has been proper networking. So when you sync a setting, who has control over that syncing and getting all that working. For the most part, that is up and running. So I have a test version here where you can go ahead and let's click through this. So let's go to our tab settings. Let's go to our page general, and general has a bunch of elements on it. And these are toggles here, and these have a drop down on them called sync settings. So this has a few things here, such as sync type none and whether or not to use persistence. Let's go to something I actually want to sync. So in our sync examples, we have this udon drop down here. This has the sync settings, all players, so any player can come up and actually modify this, so they can press the button and everyone else will see that change. And when use persistence is checked, there's a key that shows up here. So this is what actually gets used when you actually try to set this variable as persistence. So you can change this to whatever you want. You probably want it to be named something along the lines of my project by setting. So this would be world UI / synced dropdown, something like that. That way you aren't accidentally overwriting someone else's setting on a tool that you've put into the project. So let's say you have like a bowling system and you have a dart game system. If both of those use the persistence value high score, then they're just going to override each other. So you want it to be bowling high score and darts high score, stuff like that. But as I mentioned earlier, there is a lot more to this than just the all players. So if I want a specific player, let's say someone with a specific username to use it, then we can just set it to, where's an example? Here we go. We can set it to be usernames, and that will let us put in as many names as we want into this field, and anyone with that exact username will be able to use this field. A very common one, I suspect, will be sync type master only. So that way, only the person who's currently the master of the instance can go over and change it. Now, the way the system works right now is it stores the networked data on a separate object. That way, all of this, the actual parts of the UI can be not synced and safe from all that. So we have these separate objects here that during the instantiation process, they're actually created as a child of the element that they are connected to. So this one is connected to synced dropdown. So when this is created, it is created as a child here. And that's largely just for the instantiation step, but that actually became an issue. You see, when a certain page of the menu isn't visible, it's not visible because it's off. We literally turn off the game object that is showing that that page. But as a result, the actual synced settings themselves weren't getting enabled properly when somebody changes a variable. And this was just something that was noticed by one of our testers, and fortunately, it was a pretty easy change to just, once all these synced things are generated, we go through, find all of them, and move them under this right here, so that we have all of our synced stuff in one spot and always enabled. So that's largely working. And now it's mostly going to be digging through a few other things just to make sure that all of our bug reports are ironed out, but also a few additional little features. So one thing that we didn't have a while back was the ability to turn on and off individual components through Udon. You would be able to do it from like audio source enabled or Udon behavior or whatever, stuff like that. But you couldn't just arbitrarily enable and disable a component. But that's actually a feature now. That is a feature as of the VRChat SDK 3.10.2, I believe, which is current. Which fortunately means we can actually just go into one of our settings here. Let's go ahead and make a new one and select, let's do toggle components. And in here, we just have an array of stuff. And we can put in, frankly, anything that we want. Technically, it's not a component array. It is a behavior array. But behavior is the direct parent of component and makes more sense to the majority of people who are going to be interfacing with this system. So fortunately, yeah. We do just have the ability to toggle any kind of component that can be toggled. Obviously, things like a mesh filter cannot be toggled, but a mesh renderer can be. So that makes things nice and easy. All right, let's look at what we got here. So on the 9th, so that would be Monday, we had a bug report from, I can't actually tell because OBS has enabled streamer mode in my Discord, so I can't see their username. Let's see. When using dropdown Udon with sync type all players, the selected option display is synced for everyone, but it doesn't seem to run the setInt/callbacks for everyone. Not sure if that's something to be intended or maybe too complicated for the menu and should be handled in the Udon script itself. So I believe it should be doing that. Let's just double check this. Selected option display is synced, but it doesn't run setInt/callbacks. Okay. So that is specifically for the drop-down Udon behavior. So let's go ahead and take a look at one. So we have a drop-down right here. This is a World UI drop-down. Let's open it up and honestly just close a bunch of stuff here. All right, so this is our drop-down constructor, and this here is our actual drop-down component. Set ints and run events is handled during on component used. It is not handled in apply to scene. Okay. Apply to scene is the one that's used when I think this is the one that's loaded when persistence value changes. So on persistence loaded, it does the set variables. Okay, yep. And init does apply to scene. What about on deserialization? Well, I guess on deserialization is coming from our synced stuff. So we're gonna have to look at that. So under scripts, we have element sync. So let's go and compare this guy. All right, set sync things, refresh permission state. ownership transfer on deserialization. Um, Interesting. Okay, yeah. So set float without notify. So basically what's happening here is we're setting the value on the target bindable, i.e. our drop down, and it's not running a bunch of callbacks, but what it is doing is setting its value. The reason that this didn't itself run a bunch of callbacks is because I didn't want this to cause a cascading effect of ownership. So if I if I set a toggle to be on and you receive that value, the synced stuff needs to tell the toggle to turn on without you telling the toggle, hey, I'm telling you to turn on. And once you've turned on that toggle, it broadcasts out to everyone else and then loops indefinitely. However, that does seem to be but it should be running apply to scene. Okay. So if it runs apply to scene, then I think these should be handled in apply to scene. Which makes me wonder if I've messed this up in any other setups. Okay, yeah, so we single select is going to have the same thing going on. Let's see, World UI tab, do you have anything going on for reply to scene? Use active style. Okay, yep. Yeah, I was cautious about this in the past because I didn't want this to cause a cascading effect for a bunch of issues, but I think this would work correctly if the user who's running this is already using their own Udon behavior stuff for this. Sam, welcome. How is it going? We're getting a bunch of little fixes and stuff here so we can get ready for the proper release of World UI version 1.2, I think it is. Let me actually see. I have that somewhere. Unity exports, World UI. Yeah, 1.2. We currently are on 1.2.0 that we are developing for. This is largely a bunch of networking improvements, some security stuff for being able to say only the master can change these things, and stuff like that. I'm doing good, just making a mining game for VR chat and a new microphone system. Oh, cool. Yeah, I've always found audio to be one of those things that anytime that I need a system for something, I've always had to just make one myself. Audio is something that's always complicated enough that a pre-existing system doesn't quite fit what I'm after, but I keep having to do the same things. So I just do slight changes on the same things every time. Alright, on component used, this will get moved over here. That's the only other thing. Because that's the only spot where set ints is called from that. Set bools is applied to scene. How are you? How are you doing? Yeah, I'm doing really good. It's not incredibly VR chat focused. But one of the things that I've been working on as of late is building out my own NAS, a network attached storage. A while back, I got a small Lenovo Think Center, one of those tiny business PCs, for free when an office was upgrading all of their systems. And I found a project online where some people were taking those and 3D printing a custom enclosure and putting a bunch of drives in it. And I've been working on building that out. I'm not sure it's the most cost-effective solution, primarily due to the extra step of having to learn a bunch of things and the initial acquiring some parts. Like I needed different a different soldering iron, so I had to buy another soldering iron. That's what that means. Yeah. One of the important things about the one that I'm building right now, actually, is that it's not just going to be local network. It certainly can be, and it is directly accessible off the local network. But my girlfriend, who lives umpteen hours away from me, is going to be sharing it with me. So I have it set up so that she can actually remote into it and put a bunch of stuff on it, and then we can share things. Which is one of the reasons why I have made a 8 drive NAS. I only bought 4 because drives are expensive right now. But the long-term idea is that we will be able to hold 8 drives in it. The long-term idea is that we will have an identical system that's over at her place, and then our systems mirror to each other. Probably with, I don't know, mine as the main one, and then hers as the one that it gets mirrored to. Or maybe we both have 2 4-drive pools, one that's my system and mirrors to hers, and another that's her system and mirrors to mine. I'm not sure what will be the best solution. We're currently using Zima OS for our NAS solution, which works quite well for a lot of things, though is also still, I mean, it's Linux. It's going to have some weird things. It's not open source per se, but the feature set is really nice. It makes things incredibly user friendly. It gives you a nice UI for all of your NAS management stuff, but also being able to run Docker containers. So if I want to watch, like, I don't know, some anime from a bunch of DVDs, or I guess Blu-rays these days, that I've ripped, then we can do watch parties with a service called Jellyfin, and we can just run that. I could even make the server run a Minecraft server if I wanted. I'm not going to do that because it's a tiny Lenovo machine that's already doing too much. But it's really nice to have those options, and I've definitely had a really good time with it. So it's been quite fortunate. All right. So let's see. We need to. Here, let's go ahead and verify. Oh no, I didn't want the tween one. I want the. Or is it? There we go. Boot on target. Okay, boot on target utility. So this is what I use for a bunch of callback stuff that is hard-coded in. So I have a separate callback system that's for runtime and is very, very easy to use, but uses data lists and data dictionaries, meaning it can't be serialized. So you can't store the data in the editor, hit play, and all that data is still there. It has to be generated at runtime, which works good if you're just live subscribing to things, but doesn't work good if you're pre-generating a bunch of things, like, well, the World UI system does. So I'm just manually stashing up a bunch of Udon behaviors and strings for event names and stuff like that. Excuse me. And that's working well, but one of the consequences is that I have this thing here, and this is doing a bunch of callbacks. And that's actually where some of the issues was coming from the bug reports we were getting, is that these callbacks are just happening at the wrong time. And that seems to be entirely my fault. Dr. Blackheart, welcome. We're actually doing some bug fixes today on World UI. I'm not sure either of us have actually played around with the other's UI system, but yeah, I finally have a networking slash security system question mark quotations implemented in a way that people have the ability to actually do that. Of course, it's not released yet. This is me fixing a pre-release version. Because there were, in fact, some tiny issues. Most of it just involves where some of my callbacks were happening, and they were just in the wrong spot. But for the most part, I think let's just make sure that all of these callbacks are happening during the apply to scene event. So that one is, and toggle. Yep, that's all. Okay, that's all in the apply to scene. Yeah, we just have this. What is this? Where is this being used? Okay, this is part of the generator stuff, since tuples aren't actually a thing in Udon, but we are in fact using it for our generator. One of the really nice things, I guess now that you're here, one of the really nice things we got recently was the ability to just toggle on and off components. Technically it's behaviors, but functionally it's components for people. So I've actually just been able to add a generic option for toggling components. I don't need a bespoke thing for every single thing, like a light. I think audio source technically isn't a component. I could be wrong. Should be simple enough to find out. Do you plan on changing that with Soba? You have to give you credit. Your system seems quite well designed from a programming perspective. Mine has grown a bit of a mess. Yeah, one of the big advantages that I had building this system is that I basically had two completely different projects that were happening at the same time that required me to develop a very expansive menu generator based on small amounts of data for what everything should be doing, and it just needs to lay it all out. So I actually managed to have a lot of time with both of those projects to mentally work through what the actual infrastructure needs to be for stuff. Yeah, Basis was the one that I actually worked on for it. In fact, a lot of the UI prefabs in Basis started as World UI prefabs because I just didn't want to manually recreate all of the horizontal layout, vertical layout stack. The UI there looks a lot different now, but there's enough similarities that you can kind of see it. Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I added here for this version is networking, and that's a separate component that houses all of the stuff. And I actually just fixed a bug issue. You can tell they were made by the same person. Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, at least I have a consistent style. Yeah, I actually had an issue with the testing version of the syncing, where these were actually being instantiated as children of the component they were affecting, and I thought that was probably fine. But alas, turns out when you turn off a parent object, all the children objects are off as well. Oh, who could have guessed? Welcome, Lumi. Welcome. So that meant that the components handling the networking, if you didn't have that page of your settings open, you weren't getting all the new network data. So I've just had to move all of those to their own little container down here. And that, crazy, I know, right? And now all of that's just like working, which I'm quite happy about. That's one of those things that's a bit annoying. Yeah. There's a few things that run even when your game object is off, but not everything. I could be wrong, but I think on purchase complete runs. I don't actually remember. It's been forever since I fiddled with that. I currently don't disable any of the pages and just hide them using canvas groups. Yeah, one of the big worries with mine is I have so many layers of stacks of different UI things and layout components that I just didn't want to have so many things all enabled at the same time. It might. I don't remember if on purchase complete does. I remember there being some funniness with it, and maybe the behavior changed at some point. Maybe even changed before it went into the live SDK. I don't know. But yeah, basically just expect that nothing arrives when your game objects are disabled, but be ready to respond when something does arrive. I also started. I actually have a feature in here for like a check mark. Yeah, strip layout experimental that just applies all of the layout stuff for those things. But there's a few things that need to adjust sizings and things at runtime, and I don't remember. Oh, I guess here I have a tooltip telling me what's up. Experimental, whether or not to strip layout elements during the build process. This is for performance improvements, but behaves inconsistently with certain size fitter components. Okay, well, there you have it. That's why I don't automatically strip all of my layout components. It also hypothetically means that you can add and remove components at runtime, which technically there's a bunch of infrastructure for you to be able to do that, but it's not being used and I haven't tested it. So I essentially just have a remove layout component script that you can put on the root of everything that needs to keep them, has a keep layout components on it. Yeah, that could be a good idea for it. But yeah, it's one of those things that, again, I'm getting around by just not having most of the UI be enabled at any time. And we also no longer have the issue of your UI literally rebuilds every frame in 90% of situations. But yeah. One of the other things that I wanted to work on is the actual permission system. So let's go into the settings and let's do settings sync examples. So for our sync options, there's all players, master, usernames, none, and there's going to be a additional option called permission system. This is just a generic ability to call out to a Udon behavior and ask, hey, does this user have this level of permission? And respond with a true or false. I may have to revisit how I do some of my lists of users, etc., because instantiating a prefab with TMP and an Udon script caused a bit of a hiccup. Ugh, yeah. TextMesh Pro, I love and hate. There's so many like nice things that it does, but there's also so many performance issues that I run into with it, especially with large amounts of text. For example, I'm using TextMesh Pro for a system that I'm building that's essentially e-readers in VR chat. Think like Kindles for reading ebooks. Excuse me. And in order to handle the spacing correctly, what we've essentially done is we've taken chapters and made each chapter one string. And depending on what your book thinks a chapter is, that might be like anything from like a couple pages of a like science textbook to like a fifth of Moby Dick. Like every book is completely different in what it thinks the format of a book should be. And fun fact, when you have like 1/5 of all of Moby Dick loaded into a single text field, your frame rate goes down to like 20 at best. I'm not entirely sure what it is specifically that's doing it. I think it might just be like vertex count, but we don't have all of that text visible at once. We're using the TextMesh Pro truncation feature pages, so that it only shows up to a certain amount of characters at a time. This apparently, however, is just visual and not performance at all. So you're still having the performance tank of you being able to see all of those text characters. Which, oops. You could do something like what Telux is doing with his library, where he just does image loading for... Oh yeah, we're not going to do image loading because there's a lot of things that we want you to be able to do at runtime, because we're not making like scans of manga. We are making a interactable EPUB. So the Kindle thing, I think it's called the Monocle, is what we're going with for the name on it. But the e-reader itself gives you font options, font sizings. We insert things for where images are going to be available and stuff like that. So the text needs to be malleable at runtime. And that allows us to store all of our books as a JSON, so that you can load all the book at once. And if you have a 500-page book, that's just like a few megabytes of text. Like, that's not going to be 500 different images that you now have to load on a server. Like, honestly, we could probably get away with having tens of thousands of books just stored on our GitHub repo for where we're doing everything. But in order to have redundancy for the long term, if we do get proper automation going for just throwing our books in, we're largely using sources like Gutenberg and the likes, where they are CC0 EPUBs and stuff, because we obviously don't want to be getting in trouble. But once we're able to do automation with that, we want there to be a place that we can actually properly store all that without whoever owns GitHub yelling at us. Is that Microsoft? I don't remember. So we actually have a Amazon S3 bucket that we've set up for storing all of our stuff. I know legacy text kind of sucks, but how does it perform in comparison? Well, legacy text doesn't have the pages truncation feature, so we can't use it. We unfortunately can't actually. Yeah, one of our big issues is VRChat does not give you a lot of the features that TextMesh Pro has. So you can't get character info, you can't get word info, you can't get stuff like that. So you can't just check, hey, is this character visible? And pre-bake that into a bunch of stuff. So we have to rely pretty heavily on features that are built into the TMP text components. Anyway, UI permission, World UI permission stuff. The VRC URL input field also still stuck on the old one. True. Fortunately, you can kind of just build a wrapper if you really want it to be the new one, where every change to it just copies the string into a label. It's not pretty, in terms of you setting it up, but it is something that is get aroundable. And I get it. They did it with the original tech stuff first, and in order to have the security stuff wrapped around the VRC URLs, they had to pretty heavily modify it. But hypothetically, eventually they could do one for TextMesh Pro. Yeah, I did do that. Just copy everything over. Yep. Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna need to move. Where is it? World UI permission system. Honestly, I'll just make a new script in here. Base world UI permission system. Basically copy this whole thing and drop the demo part of it. And over here, we drop the base part of it. And we can drop the examples. Sorry for making the apps. Yeah, no worries, no worries. I love chatting about stuff on stream. Excuse me. That being said, I have a limited supply of water today. The building is doing some, the apartment complex I'm in is doing some emergency maintenance on the water. So I have like 6 water bottles that I filled up prior, but I think that was really basic. Oh, this? Yeah. Okay, so the big thing about the permission system is, well, one, it inherits from all my other stuff, but this is the kind of thing I would love to be an interface, because it basically just is like, okay, you have this function. I just need to put this function on something and just kind of enforce that it's there. And it's the kind of thing I would love interfaces for. That way you could slap it onto VRC linking or stuff like that really easily. But we're not quite there yet. So, oh well. There's probably some horrendously cursed system that I could make to fake interfaces, but oh well. I'm not gonna go doing that. I already have a bunch of systems for faking, like on-change callback events, in Udon. Actually, where do I have that stored? It's probably under WUI attributes. No, it's not. It's WUI. Instantiation extensions, modules. Is it just under WUI utilities? Teleport to destroy children, set Udon event. No, it's not under that. I could have sworn I did in this project. Example asset director, base WUI permission. Array utility? No. Is this even used? Oh, yeah. This is used in the runtime versions of a bunch of things. So, like, this is never used in practice, I think. Oh, no, it is used. But it's set to be able to be runtime or editor. Now I'm really curious. Where did I put that? That stuff for, yeah, because there's a bunch of extensions for making, did I just not do that in this project? Was that a thing I did for the e-reader, not for World UI? Man, my brain's like convinced. Oh, no, I didn't do it for the e-reader. I did it for the Perfect Pair of Wings game. So is player whitelisted as display name and VRC player API? Is whitelist player president? Whoops. Get names formatted. Get names. Get who added. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. My system doesn't have any of those runtime changes, so don't have to worry about that at all. Yeah, this is, yeah. Though I could probably just have a second one, get user permission, and do string username and VRC player API user and this just does a call for get user permission. User dot display name. All right. Yeah, it's gonna be enough there. That one is really useful for network security related stuff. Sure. Yep. Yeah. Honestly, I can probably even make this one just a wrapper. Undo get user permission local player display name permission key. Yeah, because we're inheriting from WUI behavior, which already caches the local player during the init. Yeah. So this is my incredibly basic network security stuff. So we inherit from these things, and in my demo, there's just an array of admins and an array of moderators. And we check if you're permission key admin, if you're permission key moderator, and if so, congrats, you did it. There we go. Alright, let's get one into the scene and fiddle with it. As soon as Unity lets me. Let me in. There we go. Almost. Reloading domain. Completing domain. Holding on. Importing. Holding on. There we go. Alright, we're in. And this will be our demo permission system. Why do you get if they are a moderator if that is not the key they're asking for? Why do you get if they're the moderator? Oh, so mine checks. I just do it up here so that I can do the switch statement down here. There's not really like a performance concern of doing that. I just didn't want to do like, because I use isAdmin twice, so I could just do the isAdmin up here and then ismod in ismod, but I just kept everything up here for organization, and it just makes things more visually apparent what's happening, especially since this is our demo. Permission system demo. Yeah, I mean, like, how often are you going to be checking someone's permission? Certainly not a million times a frame. Valgan John, sure. Okay, so we need these to actually be permission things. So if we go to our sync settings, it's kind of annoying to me that the sync settings dropdown doesn't persist. I'm not entirely sure why. Yeah, this needs to have a permission system option, which I find, oh god, where? Let's see, GUI element sync, master permission system. I wish VRC had a better native way of turning an array into a data list, because currently they don't support that at all. Yeah, I am very much in the make a bunch of extension methods camp, and I have that now. Array utility, I guess I haven't done it much for this one, but yeah, I do make just a bunch of extension methods that are like this data list and then do that. I get why they don't have that implicitly, because there just like isn't a way to guarantee that your entire list is only of one type with data lists. I guess you could hypothetically have some kind of backing force to enforce something like that, but this I don't know. There's probably ways of handling it, but not ones that I'm certain of. All right. Case sync control type. Sync control type permission system. Okay, so we need to actually store the permission system on here. Public GUI permission system. Then we do return permission system dot get local user permission or permission key. I'll have a public string permission key. Now we need to go ahead and add that into the editor, because I'm pretty sure that isn't going to just show up naturally. Element sync settings drawer. Okay, so permission key, pop that over here. Public string. Oh god. One of the things that I don't like about the World UI project is that there's so many scripts. I just like blink and then I realize I have like 400 different files open, and I just completely have to step back and recontextualize where I am and what I've been doing. Okay. This is sync for element. Cool. So this needs permission key. Permission key. We should put the permission system in there as well. Oh god, permission is one of those words that I haven't typed a lot in the past. So now that I'm typing it multiple times in a monospace font, I just feel like that I'm misspelling it. Now that I'm seeing it a bunch of times. This is like a weirdly recurring issue for me. The N should not be capitalized there. This would be permission system. Oops. Then permission key. So these will be property fields. Do bonk, bonk. Why did I use a capital N for that originally? Alright, usernames will be replaced with permission system and permission key. If I can spell it all. Show for systems key. Show. Why did I capitalize the N in user names? Why did I do that? Yeah, so we'll just do sync control type. Sync type equals that. So I'll be doing a couple of these. Field permission system set active. Sync type equals permission system and field permission key dot set active. Sync type equals permission system. So yeah, so this is toggling on and off a UI thing. I've changed my standard on this to being, instead of set active, set style active. Set style display. No, that's it. I also like having a second one, which is set style visible. Visibility, that's it. Visible and hidden. There we go. Alright. Go back for order. There we go. So this should only display these fields during that stuff. So let's go see where we're cloning these settings. Will be bindable. Apply settings. Okay. We'll do use persistence. Is that going to be part of the sync? Yeah, that's going to be part of the sync itself. Alright, so set sync settings happens here. Kira, welcome. Ah, you were the person who was commenting about some issues with the dropdowns. I could not think of your username because since I have OBS open, it turned Discord turned your username into just K ... But yeah, we've gone ahead and moved around the callbacks that you had specifically called out. Since in almost all situations, the set int and like those specific callbacks were done under the apply value, but for those two fields, they hadn't been updated yet to be doing it in apply value. It was instead doing it in the on component changed, on component used, I think. It was something like that. So I went ahead and fixed that for the udon dropdown and for the udon single select, because that had the same issue. And I looked around, and I think those were the only two components that had that happening on it. Okay, so other things that were set up here. So we have our permission system equal sync settings permission system at permission key equals sync settings permission key. So excited for the new update. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. I've mostly been taking this stream as a opportunity to just clean up a bunch of stuff, improve a few things, go through a bunch of issues, bug reports people have had with some stuff. And for the most part, I think we're basically there. Okay. This bool value should not be a mathf approximate 1. It should be a sync value does not equal 0. We don't need a mathf approximate extern for that. We shouldn't be checking if it is a 1. We should check that it's not a 0. Yeah. Because all of the synced variables in this are secretly just a float that gets cast around, so that we don't have a synced int, bool, and float on every single one of these scripts. Hypothetically, I could have made a bespoke WUI element sync int, and then float, and then bool. But, like, the performance increase of having a synced bool rather than a synced float, I do not believe warrants the creation of bespoke scripts for that. But, I think we're basically there for this. Let's test the permission system stuff to see how that works. Because Kyr, one of the things that we're working on for this release is having basic integration for some kind of permission system. So by default, you have the sync settings for all players, none, master only, and usernames. Kyr, okay, gotcha. But we've also added one for permission system. I know these dropdowns don't properly show up in stream when I click on them, but here, let's go to this one. We'll do, I don't know, drop down udon, sure. So we'll have this description, title, permission system dropdown. Excuse me. And this will have 3 options. Option 1, choice 2, and selection. Oops, if I can spell. And selection 3. Now, we're going to give the sync settings the sync type of permission system. So we'll ping that to demo permission system, and this will require you to have the admin option. So then only admins in this permission system can actually change it. Now, this permission system is incredibly basic. It's just, there's a string array of admins, string array of modifiers. It checks to see if you're an admin, and then if it's looking for moderator, it checks to see if you're a moderator or an admin. Good evening. Welcome, Max. Welcome. So this demo is a basic implementation of the base WUI permission system, which itself is just 3 wrapper things. Is this built in or something you're developing? So the whole system that I have here for generating the menus, the permissions and stuff, this is all part of my system world UI. There's an editor that you build out. You can go in here, you can click plus to add some things to it, and you essentially build your entire menu that way. The permission system that I'm doing here is also basically that. It's a completely custom-made system that, honestly, this permission system is just as an example for other people to make their own permission systems. Largely ones that would integrate with things like VRC linking or other large systems like that. Since this one is just, honestly, a more complicated way of doing something that's already built in, and that's just having lists of users that are capable of doing something. So let's say, for example, if we're looking at our sync examples down here, we already have sync things that are, see, that one's for all players. This one's for the master only, and this one is only for users with the username Valgan, because that's me and I'm the one testing. And all of that works great. Oh, excuse me. However, sometimes you'll need something more complicated. So let's say you want to give a special role to anyone who has, like, I don't know, a specific role on a Discord server. In order to integrate that with VR chat, you would use a tool like VRC linking or, oh, what's the other one? It's actually the one I'm more familiar with, and so it's funny I'm forgetting the name. Disbridge. There we go. Disbridge is another one. This looks way more organized than a simple menu I made in my world. Well, that one of the major features of this is that menus are hard to make. So I just spent like 6 months, probably over a year in total, of like returning to this project and stuff, in order to make something that makes basic but complicated UI that you can like have advanced options for. All of these down here, these are like the have specific udon callbacks and stuff. So if you want something more basic, we can actually just go like, oh yeah, all right, let's have a toggle for a game object. Here's a toggle, we select game object. And you put in the icon, you don't need one. You put in the title, the description, whether or not it's synced, and what objects go in it, and whether or not they default on. So most of them aren't this giant wall of a bunch of options and stuff. So my big plan with this was just make this as user-friendly as possible, while also having a very advanced UI built from it. So, for example, we have this permission system here right now. This checks to see if you're an admin, so presumably I will be able to use this because I am under the admins here. So if, oh crap, okay. One thing that I forgot to do is with this system, once you've made all of your changes, you press a button to generate that new menu. So we hit the build menu button, and that basically deletes the old menu and recreates it with all of your new changes. So now we can hit play. All right. We did have an immediate miss on object oh, okay. So this is probably running before it's run init, which is good to know actually. If initialized init. There we go. That way we have the local player properly cached. So now, now presumably, we could hit play and do the stuff with that. Once it lets me. I forgot to build the menu before testing. Yeah, I've debated having some automatic building for it, but one, it's like a 2 to 4 second hitch depending on how big the menu is, and two, if you've made customizations to your menu, like added in like funny backgrounds on some pages or stuff like that, I don't want to just like magically destroy your menu that you've edited. I want that to be a bespoke choice. Like, yes, I want to rebuild the menu now. Unfortunately, it does involve you quite often. Like, you are not alone, but it does involve people quite often forgetting that they have to press the button. And then being like, oh, where'd all my menu options go? All right, so we have the permissions system drop down there. So if I click this, I can in fact swap between these. And one of the nice things about this is at runtime, we can actually change this. So let's change this from Valgan to Valgan's X. And I am not Valgan X, so oh, actually, okay, so that doesn't work. Let's see. Got a built-in role system in a few of my worlds. It's a bit janky because networking, but I don't do editor script. Mine is just built-in world menu where I can set roles to people. Gotcha. Yeah, Dr. Blackrat has a very similar system that he's built out for their menu system. It doesn't have to rebuild to change admin. Yeah, so the thought here would be every time that this is run, it's being checked, but at the same time, what's happening is oh, okay, so this is one of the things I was debating adding into the system. So whether or not you can press this button is determined by get user permission here. So let's get local user permission. Oh, is this only done here? Can set value. Yeah, okay. Can set value. And that's okay. All right. So I would need a way to re-update the permission state of anything that uses this permission system, which honestly wouldn't be that hard to do actually. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Wonder how hard it would be to have an editor script that pops up a warning icon on the script if the menu data has changed since it was last built. I guess I could store a copy of the old one, but it's all like serialized reference stuff, so I wonder if there'd be a way to do like a checksum on a list. There's probably a way. There's probably a way. I will go with that for now. All right. So refresh permission state is a public event that I can call, and actually I'm going to call here in public void refresh permission listeners. And in order to do that, we will have a Oop, a public GUI element sync. Is that it? Or is it just GUI bindable? Yeah, GUI element sync. That's it. GUI element sync array called listeners. And let's auto prop this. Get protected set. Oh, I don't care about serializing this. It's public, so it should. Oh, field, serialized field. I don't know. I'll just be sure. And then refresh permission listeners. We'll just do a for each listeners. Listener. And then we'll do listener dot refresh permission state. So in order to populate this, let's have a callback for that. So we'll have a public static void on post process scene. Give it the post process scene attribute. This will probably be just a -1. That should be fine. This needs to not be in the compiler, so if Unity editor and not compiler food on sharp. That there. And then put it in the editor callback stuff up here. There we go. So now we'll do GUI element sync array syncs. Find objects by type. GUI element sync. We want to include inactive and don't care about sorting. I think honestly, yeah, that looks better. So now we want to get an array of base GUI permission system systems equals basically same thing except swap the type. Then for each systems we'll do actually what is the easiest way to do this? Because we're going to be appending stuff. Okay, we'll make a dictionary of lists. Okay, so let's have a dictionary of GUI element sync. No, of base GUI permission system and a list of GUI element sync. That's it. Assigned permissions. Just make a new one of that. Honestly, in that case, we don't even care about having a pre-existing array of systems because all of the systems that we care about are already assigned to these syncs. We just need to notify the systems about the syncs. Okay, that's it. So we're going to for each our syncs and then do base GUI permission system perm equals sync dot permission system. But we don't care about this if the sync dot mode actually, yeah, wait. How is that stored? Binding type, is that it? No. Sync type. Ah, there we go. Sync type does not equal permission system. Continue. So we have the permission system here. If perm is, for some reason we just didn't assign it, continue. Keep going. One of the big things about doing code in the post-process scene attribute is if for any reason you ever error in here, it stops the build. Unity will just like stop the build process and like won't even let you go into play mode if there's an error that happens in these, because it's meant to be like automation tooling, and if something errors, you're meant to know immediately, hey, an error happened, we have to stop. So I actually have to do a bunch of stuff here to make absolutely sure that this doesn't break. Okay, so we're gonna do if assigned permissions contains key firm, and if it doesn't, we'll do assign permissions firm equals new list, because I think we have to initialize those. And then we'll do assign permissions perm dot add, and we'll pop in sync. Then at the end of this, we'll do a for each on assign permissions keys. And then system.listeners equals assign permissions system dot to array. Okay. So, long story short, what we just did, we found all of the element syncs that sit in our scene. We made a dictionary for storing the permission systems and their corresponding syncs. We looked through all of the syncs that we found to see what permission systems they had and which ones they shared, and put them into that dictionary. And then when we had at the end, we had all of them. We can actually properly go and for each permission system, give it all of the assigned syncs and assign that as an array, because that's what we can do in Udon. Of course, none of this exists in Udon. In fact, explicitly exists outside of it. So this all happens during the build process, not actually in Udon. This is all so that we can go and implement this one function here, refresh permission listeners. So once Udon, there we go. All right. So let's double check everything. Demo permission system, Vaughan and John. Permission system drop down here under settings sync examples. Where is it? There we go. Sync settings, permission system, permission key admin. So this is checking this permission system to see if there's if the local user is of admin, of the permission key or rank admin. So if we hit play, none of the UI has to be rebuilt. All the stuff that I was changing was in the permission system itself. So let's go ahead, swap to sync examples, and I'm still an admin right now, so I can change all these. I'll put it on selection 3. Now I will go to the demo permission system, change Vaughan with Vaughan X. And now that we've changed that, we can go run custom event and run refresh permission listeners. So presumably in some system that you build, this automatically happens when new users are assigned, or like when you download a new list from the internet. And I can go up and I can no longer Awesome! I can no longer interact with this list because I am no longer an admin on this list. But if I add another, and me as index 2 is real Valgan, and refresh permission listeners, I can once again change it. Perfect. There we go. Do you also play VRChat often, or do you just code and make assets for it? So I actually used to be very active on VRChat for quite a while. These days, I've mostly swapped to just doing coding and assets, actually. These live streams have been the majority of my interaction with VRChat stuff for quite a while. There was a good amount of time, actually, where I was working at VRChat, and a lot of the stuff that I was doing was for the platform rather than on it. So since I was doing kind of both at the time, it was very quickly a little exhausting, and I'll admit there was a little bit of burnout that came with that. But these days it is largely me building a bunch of tools for people to do things on VRChat rather than actually myself popping in and doing stuff. Yeah, I worked as the creator economy community manager at the time. So I was largely the one that brought new users in, vetted them, talked to them and explained things, set some stuff out, and managed the weekly hangouts. But since VRChat, like many places, is a company where you wear very many hats, I also went and redid basically all of the custom editors that VRChat has for a lot of their stuff. So some of the less notable ones would be like improvements to the VRC pickup editor and stuff like that. Some of the more obvious ones would probably be the avatar parameters or the avatar menu editors. And one that I'm really proud of, but honestly doesn't get a whole lot of use out of, is actually the what is it called? The example central, I think. Yeah, so if you go to VRChat SDK, then there's one, you won't see it in my stream, but one of the options is example central, and it has a little house emoji next to it. And it pops up this tab. So right now it says that you need to log in to use it. I'm in play mode, which is I think why it's getting confused. But yeah, there we go. So this is a big old list of a bunch of different prefabs and stuff. So this gets downloaded live at runtime, so you can look through all of these, check out stuff. You can go to your projects and enable seeing the creator economy examples in it, and that will change things that show up here. You can search for stuff, you can import it here, you can go to the docs directly by pressing that button. But yeah, that was kind of the last big project that I worked at in VRChat, worked on at VRChat, and also kind of trying to make the visual style of it somewhere between native UI in Unity and the creator companion. Kind of merging those two visual identities was kind of the goal of this one, and I think it's pretty there. Yeah, I'm happy with it. I don't use it very often because I don't really need to download the examples very often, but I'm happy that it's there. Yeah, thanks to everyone who likes it. You may not have noticed, but I kind of keep finding myself in projects where I'm just making a bunch of UI. I didn't even intend to be a UI engineer. That just kind of happened eventually. I have no idea, like, really what even kicked it off. Just for the past, like, 2 years, maybe even 3, I've mostly just worked on UI. it's just a space that has a lot of things that people need from it, and a lot of people don't want to spend years devoting themselves to it for obvious reasons. It's just like people don't have that time. Sample scene. Okay, yeah, I'll move. Do I have an examples folder for my scripts? I don't think I do. It's just funny. Yeah, I think UI makes the work with VR chat way easier. That's honestly probably why I started doing it. I really there's just so many things that, like, especially when I was making tutorial videos, it's so much like there's so many little things that are just really hard to do without some custom tooling and some good UI in order to make that process easier. Visual arts major plus knack for programming. Yeah, I guess it was a eventual natural intersection to a lot of observers. Yeah, we functionally have our permission system demo. Let's go ahead and put that script in the sample scene folder. I could probably honestly just make a folder for scripts in here, and even if it'll just be one. Personally, I just hated how most worlds UIs work/look. Yeah. It's definitely something that's hard to get right, especially since designing for UI in VR is like not a solved science remotely. Because essentially what we've kind of gone with as how you interact and use a UI is like having a really big interactable like McDonald's menu that you're standing like 4 feet away from and can only interface with a laser pointer. It's such a completely non-standard system that doesn't exist outside of just VR. So what we have isn't really something with like decades of study and things like that. It's all just like what feels good today, I guess. Currently we're just floating iPad on wall. Yeah, pretty much. Sometimes I'd even say it's largely just mobile app development, though we do tend to do a bit more with the like 16 by 10 kind of resolution. What's the resolution I got on this? Yeah, this is 15 by 10, so 1500 by 1000 is kind of the resolution I've gone with for a lot of my things. There is a way to make it touch. True, this is correct. We actually have contacts in Worlds now. So I almost wonder if I should make like an extension. Like it would be a lot of work, so it would probably be like a paid add-on for it. Well, but the project's already paid. I don't know. So also really like 16 by 10. Yeah. 16 by 10. 15 by 10 I found is just like an easier number for me making some sprites. But 15 or 16 by 10 is a very, very nice one for it. Yeah, I guess I could hypothetically go ahead and make the... Yeah, okay. There's a lot of like stuff that Just Be Club has done in the past with those buttons. Those are pretty cool, and they have a lot of stuff that's really neat about them, but they are certainly not going to be performant. Mostly because it's a series of physics objects you're moving around. You have a lot of them, and you're relying on Udon to move all of their positions every frame. Plus, since they're effectively kind of teleporting around, it's not the easiest to get a lot of the on-trigger enter and exits to work very well, and that kind of involves you eventually just kind of utilizing on trigger stay, which is a not performant way to do it even more because you're just constantly checking. Doing touch sliders kind of sucks. Yeah. There's a lot, again, now that we have context, a lot of that stuff can really be improved on. Obviously, this system is functionally, as of now, ready to ship. Because I've gone ahead and fixed all of the bugs that have been reported to me. So I'm not going to put it in this one. However, I think adding context, the like hand tracking essentially support to this UI could be kind of neat. I'm not convinced it would be the most interesting thing to stream, primarily because I don't want to stream doing Unity development in VR. So I guess I'd have like a sphere that hangs around in the scene that I just drag around to test with. And then just make it compatible with that sphere and fingers. Or like the fingers, a hand. I guess I would have to use only one kind of trigger on the hand because I don't want to have it triggering multiple times. Well, you can have it not trigger while it's maintaining one contact at least. It's not something that I've dove into a lot in the past, but there's certainly options for it. Oh, trajectory math. There's some things you can do for it, but would you recommend to use an event camera in Canvas, or is this unnecessary? That feature is completely unnecessary for us because that gets enforced by VR chat at runtime. So you do not need to set an event camera at all for anything that you're doing in the UI. You can functionally just ignore that. The only thing that it will do for you is get rid of this little yellow pop-up, but VR chat will still be setting that manually since they instantiate their own camera for your face. So they need that to be the one that's handling all the UI stuff. So yeah, no worries. You don't need to set that at all. Hey, always feels good to learn stuff. Oh, also feels good to drink water. Remember to take breaks and hydrate thyselves. All right, let's see here. What has changed? This tab, okay, tab group is all the instantiated stuff. Menu listing URL. What? Oh, right. Yeah, so Blackrat had mentioned earlier that there's only normal legacy text versions of input fields. And my logo here on the bottom left-hand corner is actually what's it called? It is actually an input field. So whenever you click on this, you get the VR chat menu pop up that shows you the input for the URL. And since it's set to read only, you can just copy that if you want to go and properly go to the listing for this. Excuse me. Though I guess this lists to the documentation. Oh god, I have to update documentation for this. Okay, well, that is going to be a not on stream activity. Nobody wants to watch me update documentation, and boy howdy, I cannot update documentation while talking. It's just some math. Okay, the only thing that I've run into in the past for doing those like position, like trajectory stuff, for any kind of issues is I found that it works pretty good for having a couple things. But let's say you have like 400 different stuff in the scene. It gets to be I've found it difficult to not have to independently do all of those checks all of the time, even if it is just math. And fortunately, contacts aren't in Udon, so they don't have the massive performance cost of being in Udon. Doing any code in Udon is just a flat at least 4 times worse than doing it in normal C#, and can often be 10 and even 40 times worse depending on what it is, instead of just doing it in C#. And that's for a lot of reasons. Like, one, it's being sandboxed. Two, there's a bunch of security checks to make sure that the things your Udon's compiler are actually doing. But yeah, it's the kind of thing that I've just never found the performance cost to be worth the hassle. But I am more than happy to do it with contacts now that they're out. My only poking around with contacts outside of avatars was very early on, and the SDK didn't work yet. So I look forward to actually doing some integrations with that. For now, let's go ahead and apply all these things. So apply selected. There we go. These are not real changes. I'm uncertain why it's reporting them as changes. Apply that to examples. Okay, I'm just gonna try manually doing that. Okay, so if we go to the thing here, if we go to settings, sync, then drop down Udon permission system drop down. Okay, yep, yeah. This is all correct. Okay. In that case, do version, yeah, this is still set to WUI tween 1.2. Wait, why does that say WUI tween? That's supposed to be world UI. World UI. If I could remember the world name, I'd tell you, but I don't want to say the creator's name. They don't like the unwanted attention, but they're very good when it comes to network light functions. Oh wait, what did I miss? Light functions. Oh, like functions that are easy on the network, not controlling lights over the network. Okay, I misread that. All right. Well, crap. Now I have to find something to do for 20 minutes. I really expected some of this to take a bit longer, but a lot of it's pretty much there, honestly. I guess we can sanity check. We can go ahead and properly do a build and test for it, because I've only been testing stuff here in the editor. I don't want to build and publish. I want to build and test. Now, I have a wacky, slightly broken setup here in order to get VR chat testing working. So I have to boot a couple versions of VR chat individually. Oh god, I still have menu music for it. Here. close that. I need to change something. I'm on like a really old beta that doesn't exist anymore, so that might cause some network issues. So I just need to go on to live here. Or is there an open beta? Does VRC have an open beta right now? Open beta March 9th. I don't know what the open beta is. If there's any possibility that any kind of open beta is slightly network weird, I do not want to be testing on that right now. Because I want to make sure my networking stuff works. I want it to be fine. I want it to be normal. I want it to work. Alright, I'll fix the resolution here shortly. What's the loading music? Is that UI menu? I think so. So now I need to launch a second one. Oh, just... Yeah, this is a low poly character that I was working on a while back for Lumilight here. Anyway. Oh yeah, I didn't realize until recently that this is a that we actually like have a new error world. Though like the old error world, they don't want you staying here, so there's no jumping. It just makes you feel uncomfortable. Let's swap to display capture instead of my auto switch. Oh god, is it the LG? Yeah, there we go. Alright, so put that one there. Put this one here. And now we go into Unity. Build and test. No more eyes flash. Yeah, because the old one was just a white floor in the Unity default skybox, yeah. Cute. Glad you like. Alright. And now we wait. There we go. Alright, so some of the issues were to do with some syncing stuff. But we also have some new features for things. So let's go ahead and fiddle with it. So sync examples, sync slider, only the master can change this. Okay, I guess this isn't the master one. Anyone can change this. Only username Valgan can change this. No one can change this. And then Valgan can change this one. Both of these users are Valgan, so they won't have any changes, but let's make sure that these changes propagate correctly. So I swap to this. We have choice 2, 0, toggled on, off, and choice 2. So now we'll change this one. Then we have both 74.3 on both. I can turn that off. No one can turn on the bottom one. And anyone can change that. Sync to toggle. Okay. Now let's swap to a different menu. Completely change all these settings. Choice 2, turn that off. Selection. Option 1. Okay. So let's make sure these are correct. Sync to examples. Choice 2, 22, 9, off, off, and 1. Alright. So all the synced stuff is propagating together. I think that's all we really needed to fiddle with. I guess I can rejoin and make sure that everything's working. So let's go ahead and rejoin world. So it should be back on the default page, but I should be able to go up. There we go. Sync examples. All right. 2, 22.9, off, 1. Awesome. Everything's loaded correctly. Yippee. I guess I can show off a little bit of this character here shortly. This is a 3D model that I did of a character that Lumilight has for some stuff that she's working on. And there's a few different little fun expressions. I had far more fun working on this than I really ever should have. But I don't know why it seems so smooth on the right. Maybe I'm just not used to how VRChat remote users look anymore. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too out of the loop of doing stuff on VRChat anymore. Oh well. She looks adorable. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. Love the little poly character. Thanks. Alright. Well, to be honest, I think that's probably as much stalling as I have in me. I appreciate everyone stopping by. I probably won't have this released tonight because I have a dinner that I'm going to go with some people to, and I don't like releasing things at like 10 p.m. So I'm probably going to have this out tomorrow around noon, and hope that I update the documentation. Yeah, updating the documentation will probably be a process for quite a bit of this, since there's been updates to things, and I probably have to update some images of a bunch of things as well. Thanks for the stream. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for everyone stopping by. Great time as always. Unlike last week, where apparently I spent a significant amount of time muted and didn't actually know, because apparently pressing space when you have a button selected can sometimes just trigger that button. Oops. But yeah, we'll see. I guess we'll see y'all next week. I have no idea what I'm going to be working on next week. I will figure it out eventually. All right. Again, thanks to everyone stopping by, and until next week, we'll see you around.